Hi, I'm Reb Myron. I'm a minister through Pathways of Light, and I've been a Course in Miracles student for 40 years. Today, I want to share with you an article I wrote, and it's called Forgiveness Lifts Us Above the Battleground. I've been particularly vigilant for the battlegrounds in my life. There are not so many as there used to be, and the battles are not so fierce. For a little while this morning, as I prepared to write on this subject, I couldn't think of any going on in my life right now. However, for a year, I've been in the middle of the battleground and often fully engulfed by a battle of addiction in someone I love dearly and its effect on my life. Even as he recovered and the battle no longer raged, my mind had formed the habit of anxiety, and it seemed to take all that I had to pull myself away from worry over him. I used a section of the course called Rules for Decision to get above that battleground. When I would have a what if thought or any fear thought about him, I would feel the pull of the story and realize I was about to get sucked in again. I would realize that the only thing happening is that I asked the ego what the situation meant. And then I would ask for the Holy Spirit's interpretation instead. I did this for a couple of weeks, and then one day I was above the battleground. And from there, I realized I was no longer interested in the story. So I quit writing it. In the end, it was very simple. I only needed to forgive my story. It only seemed hard because I had let myself get used to this drama and temporarily forgot that I longed for the peace of God. I can't be in the battle and at the same time be at peace. Forgiveness is a key to happiness, but I must employ that key if I want peace and joy in my life. As I forgive the conflict in my life, I start experiencing a happier dream. I also realized this morning that there are many battlegrounds that I sometimes don't identify. This is because they don't seem so important to me or don't cause me so much distress. For example, something that occurred a few minutes ago as I was putting my clothes on to wash. I noticed that my mind was replaying a defensive conversation over and over in my mind. It had never actually occurred anywhere other than in my mind, but obviously I felt the need to defend myself over something that had not yet and probably would never happen. Suddenly, I had a different thought. In my defenselessness, my safety lies. With that true thought, I had no trouble forgiving the battle going on in my mind. Thanks, Holy Spirit. I had not immediately identified this as a battleground because it didn't seem important to me. But before I had the thought of defenselessness, I had an uncomfortable feeling of being out of peace. The peace of God is my purpose, and lack of peace is always caused by a battleground of one sort or another. The apparent size or intensity is unimportant. I'm either at peace or I am not. I cannot be a little peaceful. If I pay attention to my thoughts, I will see the direction they are taking and time to forgive them. I can't let them be purified before they turn into something, or rather, I will let them be purified before they turn into something harder to deal with. Here's an example. I've had some plumbing problems recently. I've had the plumber out 3 times this month. This morning, I noticed that the toilet was draining slowly, showing signs of being clogged again. I started having this imaginary conversation with the plumbers in which I berate them for not doing a good job and for costing me so much money. This is another battlefield. If I do not get above it, I will soon witness it taking form in my life. Actually, I see that the whole situation is a battlefield that began with a belief in my mind. Could it be that I had thoughts of victimhood that unchecked led to the formation of a battlefield in my mind? And these thoughts produced form at the level of the story? I suspect so. That's how it is explained in lesson 325. I've also had fearful thoughts about lack, when I think about the money this has cost me and that it will cost me. There are fearful thoughts about the problem worsening over the Christmas holiday with company coming. This fear will produce more stories if I continue making a battleground in my mind. What should I do about this? Clearly, I need to forgive the situation and everyone involved in it. I know I need to get above the battleground, and I know that it is not done by correcting the problem at the level of form. Yes, I may have to do something within the story, but the cause is in my mind, not in the story. So I recognize that I've done this to myself, and now I choose to undo it through forgiveness. I give my thoughts of victimhood and lack of fear to the Holy Spirit, and and ask Him to correct my thinking and purify my thoughts. I surrender the problem to Him and trust that He will heal and direct me. Another battleground is sickness. Lesson 140 says this: sickness where guilt is absent cannot come, for it's but another form of guilt. Sometimes the mind chooses ego stories of guilt, and I believe these stories. The guilt often winds up being projected onto the body as sickness and pain. I can fight it out on the battlefield of the body, a choice that at best works only sometimes and is never a permanent solution. Or I can rise above the battlefield as I turn to the cause, the belief that guilt is real. I can believe the thought and suffer, or I can forgive that thought and let it be corrected. Most of my battlegrounds these days are created by idle chatter in my mind. They come and go with hardly a notice unless I deliberately choose to be aware of them. Those idle thoughts are producing form on some level. If they are defensive in nature or even mildly fearsome, they will give form to a battlefield I will regret. So I've learned to be vigilant for the chatter. It is something that needs to be undone. It is far better to nip it in the bud before it becomes an image I have made and must then deal with. Thank you so much for joining me in this writing. I hope that you found it helpful. And if you did, then please like it. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe. I'll be back tomorrow with another reading. See you then.